Welcome back to another episode of the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast, the drone podcast for the Caribbean and beyond. Because we're going beyond, we're outside, we're going global. And speaking of global, I'm joined in this week's episode by the founder of Global AU, Mr. Eno Umoh. And we're going to be talking about all things drone business related, and so much more. So this one is for the entrepreneurs, the operators, anybody who has ever considered making money with their drones. Get your pen and paper ready. This one is for you. Enjoy. Eno, thank you for joining me on this week's episode of the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me here.
Not a problem at all. I was looking forward to this one especially. Why don't we get started by you introducing yourself to the audience?
Yeah. So my name is Eno Umoh. I am a drone pilot turned consultant. Been in the industry for a little over 10 years now, and I've done a bit of everything. I'm in the industry from service provider to trainer to, as I mentioned, a consultant now, where I mainly help drone companies with marketing and sales and branding strategy. I typically say I'm the Deloitte of the drone industry, and I feel like I've learned enough over the years to help just navigate this entrepreneurial journey, and knowing how hard it can be, knowing the challenges that go into building a business. Spent a lot of time doing work internationally as well. So we originally started our company in Baltimore, but I'm the son of Nigerian parents, so I've been able to use that opportunity to spread my company on the African continent as well. So we've done programs everywhere from Nigeria to Kenya, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, and beyond. And true to our name, which is Global Air, we really do believe that drones have such a major impact. So much so that we say it's more than drones. Right? We say it's bigger than drones, in that we can teach both youth and adults how to take advantage of this tremendous technology. The other hat I wear is chairman of an organization called the African Drone Forum. It's the largest network of drone pilots and professionals on the continent. And we do a number of events and content, and really just bringing the African drone story to the forefront. So very passionate about the industry, and always partnering and creating content, and just getting the good word out there. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself, and yeah, looking forward to getting into the conversation today.
Yes, man. So before we get into all the different hats that you're wearing, because it sounds like it's a lot, how what was the origin story behind you and the drone industry? What led you to picking up the first drone?
Yeah. So honestly, so typically I talk about my first interaction with the drone, but it really starts before I even saw a drone. My dad was an entrepreneur. My dad owned a business for a number of years, and I saw how he was able to really just persevere as an immigrant, as a Nigerian in Baltimore, and dealing with government contracts and bidding on work and not winning work, and he was a contractor that dealt with hazardous waste removal, asbestos, lead, and mold, and things like that. So I worked for him for a number of years, and really got my entrepreneurial pedigree from him. And at a certain point, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. Even in college, something just clicked to me and said, like, I'm never going to work for anyone, right? I'm always going to have my own business doing something. So it wasn't until 2015. By that time, my dad had actually retired from his business, and to be honest, I realized at that time that I didn't want to necessarily deal with hazardous waste for the rest of my life.
Right.
Asbestos is pretty dangerous. So I said, you know what, this is a time to, look into something different. And I wanted something that was new, innovative, clean. And this is before I even knew about drones. So I was, 2015, I was on a trip in Nigeria, and in a very remote part of the country, and I saw a drone being used actually to cover this outdoor event, and this wasn't even like a DJI Phantom. This was like you know, a huge kind of octocopter that had like this, huge, camera on it. And I was just so fascinated by this flying machine
Right.
that was just, capturing, footage. And I literally just like was just captivated by it. And then once I realized that someone was actually being paid to operate, I said, "Oh, this is gonna be it." So another friend of mine in Nigeria kind of put the bug on my ear and said, "Hey, this drone thing is coming around." So yeah, I just started to do a little research, and the spark for me was seeing that drone used in person, understand that someone was being paid to do it, and then also seeing that there were so many different industries that were going to be using drones. So from real estate to construction to agriculture, like I mean there was just so many different applications. I said, all right, this is something that I can get into on the ground floor, find my path, find my way, and figure out some angle to kind of make it happen. So that was the origin story. I came back to the States. I had a business partner at the time. He actually had a few drones as a hobby. He was just kind of flying them around, and he kind of had that like hobby love of the drones. I had the business experience. I said, you know what, let's put both of our experiences together and create a company. And that was kind of the birth of the commercial. And yeah, at the time, I wasn't really doing. I didn't have like an existing job, that I was like fully committed to. So I just had the means to like dive in 100%, right? I just put all my effort into it from day one, and I think that's actually what has led to being where I am now, is because I was able to put in that full effort from the beginning.
So that's how you, and so that would be the origin of uh Global Air Media.
Yes, Global Air Media was the original. Yes, Global Air that we started. Yep.
Okay. And what kind of services did you guys offer?
So that was mainly just real estate photography. We were doing events, coverage. Um, we soon after kind of spun off into doing youth programming as well.
Okay.
So everything from like summer camps to after school programs. So we were actually doing all this under Global Air Media. And then eventually we spun off a nonprofit called the Global Air Drone Academy, because we realized that we could go out and get grants as a nonprofit. But for Global Air Media, it was honestly, we were the drone guys. We were just taking anything that we could get as far as drone. We didn't have the luxury of picking a niche in the beginning. So it was we just wanted to be known as the drone guys. So anything that came our way, yeah, we were doing for sure.
Okay. So from the media side of it, and you guys basically tussling, taking the drone jobs, what was the process that led to you creating now Global AU? And sorry, for those that aren't familiar with Global AU, and hearing about it for the first time, how would you describe to a new person coming into it what is Global AU? So how you got there,
Yeah,
what it is, and what you guys do.
yeah. Yeah, so Global U, I would say this goes back into, I always talk about like the evolution of my drone career. So I wouldn't have been able to start Global Air U if it wouldn't, for Global Air Media or Global Air Drone Academy. Global Air U, in short, is a consultancy. We help other drone companies with strategy, with branding, with marketing, the things that I realized that so many drone business owners struggle with, including myself at the time. It's not just flying the drone; it's how do we go out and get business. And I hear from so many drone business owners that, hey, I can't get leads. They probably have some website that they just kind of threw up there, or inconsistent branding or marketing material. So that's kind of where we help. It's drone business education, and the reason that this all came together in 2020. all of our training programs at the time, of course, had to stop. We couldn't do any more in-person training because of COVID.
Right.
And I knew that we had to put our materials online, but I didn't want to just create another Part 107 course. I wanted to create something that was really impactful, for the industry. And then I have other partners that we work with for Part 107 activities. So, so yeah, it made sense to like really dig into the needs and the problems of the industry, which again is getting business. It's putting yourself out there. It's branding. It's marketing, something, doing things like this, creating content, putting it out there. So I said, this is a great lane to be in. I looked around, I didn't see anyone else who was just focused on this lane. And once I knew that this was like a big kind of blue ocean, as they say, this just kind of made sense to me just to focus my attention here. Plus, I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. So it
Yeah.
just all aligned with, what I was looking to do anyway. So.
So as a consultancy business, so you consult directly with drone entrepreneurs and drone businesses. What kind of services do you offer to people in our space?
Yeah. So it could be everything from website development. It could be creating content on LinkedIn. It could be email marketing. All of the things that you have to do to present yourself in a professional way to your clients. So basically, what we do is we do an audit on your business and we figure out, okay, how does your website look? How are you showing up online? What do your marketing materials look like? How is your branding? Do you have a uniform look, to your space? Because a lot of times people will judge you just, on your materials
Yeah.
before they even talk to you, right? They'll go to your website. If your website is not looking, professional, then you're not going to get that big job that you want. So
Yeah.
it really does start with that first impression. And so yeah, we do an audit. We figure out, what areas that you may need help and improvement in, and we also advise you on what not to do as well, right? Because you have guys that may go out here and spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on ads, and they don't even have an ad strategy. They're not even producing content, and it's like, you waste all this money. The other problem that we're solving is a lot of times these drone companies, they go out and hire marketing agencies that have no idea about the drone industry. So they end up creating these like websites and materials that don't hit the mark. They just put up this like generic kind of chat GPT, content, and then it doesn't, reach your audience, as it should. So yeah, branding materials, marketing. We create like one pagers, lead magnet like ebooks, so you can actually um, sell your worth to your client before you meet them as well. And yeah, just really give you the materials and the resources that you need to go out and sell your services for sure.
So you guys, so you're based in US, but you operate globally. And I could hear now people saying like the US is not enough to handle. How come what was the deciding factor for expanding, to offering the services globally, and how you manage the international aspect of it?
Yeah. Honestly, I've always just been a global minded person. I've always enjoyed traveling, even before the drone, stuff. I've always enjoyed traveling. I've always enjoyed just meeting other cultures, just experiencing the world in that sense. And again, true to our name, global air. I mean, we can't be global air and not actually be doing stuff global. So for me, it just kind of made sense from inception to have that global focus. But yeah, I kind of see it as like, it's not just about what's happening in the U.S. I very much have a global mindset that all this works together in some form or fashion. And I've also learned very much that just because something happens in the U.S. doesn't mean the same thing is going to happen in Nigeria or Kenya
Yeah.
or South Africa. They're very much different cultures, different ways of doing business. Um, so I think it's also the challenge of figuring out those nuances and understanding, all right, how do we sell to this audience as opposed to that audience? There's a lot of companies in the US who want to expand internationally and they have no idea how to do that, right? They have no idea how to market to a local client or how to find local partners. So it's just kind of this snowball effect where I've also been able to build up my network, my leads across the, different countries. And I mean, I can now go to literally like a Rolodex, in my spreadsheet and just say, all right, someone needs a sensor for mineral exploration. Okay, I know a manufacturer in Lithuania or something like that. I
Yeah.
can just kind of connect the dots internationally as well. So that
Yeah.
type of stuff excites me. It's not just like focused on, all right, I'm gonna just, but it's as big as the US is, it's always bigger opportunities out there. So I think that's what keeps me going for sure.
How you manage the different cultural challenges? Because like, all right, here in the Caribbean, if you don't understand the Caribbean mentality, you can just be like, Chad, this is the most set up, laid back people ever. These people not bothered by anything. I know I'm sure that like each culture has its different, nuances. That how you manage that as a global company?
Yeah, I think it's an appreciation of perspective. It's your willingness to learn and to listen, as well, and not just assume that again because something works here, it's going to work in another place as well. I think it's also the challenge, right? And I think a lot of people they like to play it safe. They like to just go with what they know. But I'm the type that like I will take the risk. I will just show up and just start talking to people and just put myself, out there. So I think it takes the right type of mindset to either want to, do those things. Because yeah,
Like,
most people will probably be like, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna stick to here. I'm gonna do my business and then be fine with it. But
right.
certain people are just like, hey, you know what? Nah, this is not enough. I want to do more. You know.
And is there something across all these different cultures that you see everybody making the same sort of mistake, for lack of a better term?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say for sure. I mean, this whole marketing branding aspect. I mean, it's across the board. I mean, there's
Hmm.
no culture out here that I've seen as this side of the world is much better at marketing than this side. I think everyone understands that of course, we're in a space with drones now, where we're the drone use case has been validated. And there's enough companies out here who are getting enough case studies and opportunities, but it's still like, all right, how do we go to the next level? How do we like, scale what we're doing? So, I mean, I've worked with companies, I mean, Malawi, the UK, I mean, the US, Nigeria, like everyone in a way, we're working with to standardize what they do. I mean, there's a framework, that we use, a process that we take with each one of these companies. So in that sense, that's validated what we're doing, right?
Right.
Because it doesn't matter what continent you're on, what country you're in. Every drone company, needs these type of these services. So in that sense, I'm very comfortable with that. But yeah, it still goes into how you're selling things. I mean, something as little as like an ebook, for instance, right? I mean, you can have one country where they may prefer this kind of like standardized, super put together, white paper or long ebook just for the look of it. But you may have another country where you have to do a in-person presentation. Like you have to go there and present, your services. You have to like do a formal
Yeah.
in-person, presentation. So again, it's just a matter, some of those nuances, we learn along the way as well. But it is interesting. It is interesting to see how people sell. But again, website, that's something that's standard. Like it doesn't matter what country you're in, you got to have a good website. You got to have case studies. You have to have an online, presence. People are going to research you. They're going to look you up. They're going to do their proper due diligence, and that's what we're looking to drive home. Like you have to be, visible online. Yeah.
Right. So, but that's something. So you're saying that, and in my experience talking to different operators around the industry, and not so much, less so the persons offering different services, but let's say more in the media space, I find that a lot of the operators that exist in that space tend to stick more to their social media pages than the websites. And I've I've had a challenge kind of understanding why. Because at the end of the day, if you have a client who's coming to you to get a job done and they're like, all right, send me your portfolio, you sending them to Instagram page and they now have to scroll through and find, well, hopefully find something that you would like to promote to them, rather than having a website that you can just send them directly to this page or directly to a particular spot on it. And it's a challenge because I think that a lot of operators in the region still haven't fully grasped and appreciated, having a website to sell their services, as opposed to just relying specifically on social media to do it. So I'm glad
Yeah.
that anybody listening to this who may not have one, hear it as a, no, this is what it should be standard globally and everywhere. Get a
Yeah.
website, as simple as it is, to, promote what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, the same happens in obviously other places, as well. I think what it comes down to is attention to detail. And when it comes to your perception of your business, it's much different than your client's perception of your business. You may think that your Instagram is fine, but in your client's mind, they're gonna say, "Oh, they don't even have a website. They don't have this to that." I'm trying to search. So it's it's doing the things that most people wouldn't want to do, right?
Okay.
And committing to what I call the boring work, right? Because yeah, you're gonna have to write up the wording for the website. You're gonna have to, uh,
Hmm?
design it. You're gonna have to check it. You're gonna have to go back, and like that takes time. That takes a lot of work. Even writing an ebook, as good as it sounds, like who's going to sit down and actually write the ebook, right? Who's
Yeah.
going to go by chapter and make sure that the pictures are there? Like, so it I think it comes down to like, where do you want your business to be, right? Now, if you just want to get some drone jobs, here and there, and you're fine with just kind of making enough to just pay your bills and go about life and just enjoy, fine. I mean, that's fine. Like, no, everyone's not out here to be making the hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. But if you in your mind want to do more, you want to make more money, you want to grow this thing bigger than yourself, then you have to commit to doing certain things. Like, you can't just accept the fact that, oh, we just have an Instagram page. Like, you have to have a website. You have to put yourself out there. You have to, like, do these again, the boring work, to get yourself ahead. So the biggest drawback that I see, and again, this is globally. This is no particular region, but it's the mindset that, like, oh, this is good enough, or this is gonna pass, the smell test. But the ones who actually like make it far and make the money and make the impact, like their attention to detail is unparalleled. Like, they will go back and edit that SOP, line 7, to make sure that their processes are in place. They will spend the time, like, for hours on something that another person would just, it's just boring to them. They just want to go out and
That's right.
just go about their day, right? But it's the person that's actually putting in the work on the business that gets ahead. So again, it just depends on where you want to be. If you just want to kind of be solo pilot, have fun, go out there, shoot. Yeah, you can probably make a decent living. But if you actually want to go out, build a big business, hire pilots, get the big contracts, yeah, these things are non-negotiable for sure.
Has there been a single critical skill, well, outside of flying, that you could identify that is crucial for pilots to develop?
That's a great question. I would say copywriting for
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Yeah, copywriting is such an underrated skill because everything is writing, right? Your proposals are writing. Your content online is writing. The emails that you put out are writing. Your text messages that you send,
Yeah,
is writing. So copywriting is the concept of, writing in a persuasive way to get what you want or to sell what you want or to convince someone that they should do that. So the best thing I've ever done, in my career, I spent about, about $3,000 or so on a copywriting course. And it was it was more of a coaching program. And I said, you know what, like it stemmed from me wanting to grow on LinkedIn because I knew that, in order for me to kind of build my personal brand, I had to be more present on LinkedIn. And yes, so I learned the fundamentals of writing. And that really has changed, everything because you understand how to structure your post, how to structure an email, how to bring in the benefits and how to, your opening line stay. It's like, that it opens up a whole nother avenue of of how you put out everything. But yeah, I think once I understood it, like everything is literally involves writing,
yeah.
and it's such a crucial skill to have for sure. So probably something I need to like to double down on, for sure as far as that skill. But yeah, copywriting is that it's an underrated skill. Absolutely.
Okay. So, sorry, break down the process for me, right? I am a Caribbean pilot. I'm looking at this, and I started off as most of us did, media, shooting videos, and I'm realizing that there's so much more taking place in the drone space. Now, as of right now, I don't think there are any Caribbean islands that offer certification. So I don't have any official pilot certification, but I've learned some of these skills in terms of mapping and different capabilities. So, and I come to you now, I see this, and I'm like, okay, I want to grow this business into other services and be, you know, a larger scale service provider. Walk me through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it starts with understanding that there are four parts to your business, right? Um, you have the operational side, which that's the flying, that's the fulfillment, that's already what most are already doing. The second is your marketing. So really understanding like what is the marketing concept? Like what is marketing? How does that break down? Um, what are the concepts of marketing your company? What should you be doing on a daily basis to market? Like what kind of resources, what kind of
Yeah,
tools and things that you need to have in place to actually market your business. The third is sales. So a lot of times people put marketing and sales like they kind of treat it as the same thing, but marketing is how you create awareness for your business. Sales is how you actually go out and close that business. So once you have that attention, what do you do with that attention? Right? The marketing is grabbing the attention. The sales is how you actually close and nurture that attention so you actually get the business. So you have to go out and reach out to people, right? You can't just wait for people to like go to your inbox or message you on Instagram. Like,
yeah,
if you want more business, you have to go out and sell. You have to be comfortable putting yourself out there. Um, so selling, and then the last component is, just administration and finances. And with administration, it's understanding that you have to delegate tasks in order to grow. Now, you cannot do everything on your own. In the beginning, yes, you may be bootstrapping, you're putting things together. But if you really want to take that next step, you have to have a team in place who's going to help you do certain things. And the biggest thing is, well, I don't have the money to go out and hire someone. Well, you can be creative, right? You don't have to go out and hire someone, full time, off of the bat. There are, local talent that, it could be a younger kind of college grad that's going to help you send out emails, or it's going to be someone that's going to help you, even editing videos, which is something I see a lot of pilots get caught up in. For some reason, they think they have to be editing all their own videos. And I know how it is. Like, I used to love editing. I used to love just like, putting together and all that. But once I'm like, man, I'm sitting here, it's 12 a.m., 1 a.m., and I'm working on a video. I've been working on this same video for 4 or 5 hours. Like, what am I doing? Like, that's time that could have been spent, forget the work, just sleeping, right? Just resting, right? So there are certain things that you shouldn't be, doing as a business owner. So it's the difference between a freelancer and an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur builds systems in those four areas. They have the operations side down. They have the marketing side down. They have sales. They have the administrative. Like, all four of those are machines that are running. It's not you just kind of winging it and just going out here and just, getting the next job and going to complete it. And you just come home and you edit and you just repeat the same thing. No one ever is going to grow like that. No one ever has grown like that. And if you look at the top entrepreneurs and business owners in the world, they all have systems. They're not the ones answering emails. They're not the ones like, doing, I don't want to call it low level work because it's all like valuable work, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
it's work that you should delegate. So just a simple exercise that any entrepreneur should take is look at your daily task list, the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and literally write it down on a piece of paper. What did I do today as a business owner in my business? And you look at that task and you say, as an entrepreneur, should I be doing this task? Right? Or is this something that a team member should be doing? And if it's something like writing, again, editing videos, or, finding new prospects or leads, or, even writing content, right? Like, certain things should be, again, delegated to team members, to go out and execute on. And it may seem like really impossible for a lot of people right now. Like, I know how it is. Like, I know how it is to feel like, oh, I don't have the money to hire this person. But as soon as you get an opportunity to, bring on someone, you get a nice size job, you close a nice size job, you invest that money, back into your company, get someone that can come in and hire you just to do some small things. And I guarantee at a certain amount of time, you will start, your time will start to free up, right? So you can focus on what matters the most. I would say the most out of those four, um, sections of the business, the most important thing that you want to be doing or focusing your time on is the marketing, right?
Right.
It's not even the flying. So if you're the one that's doing all the flying, then you're the bottleneck in your business. Like, literally, you're the one that's holding your own business back. So you need to be focused on, and when you wake up every single day, it's how am I going to market my business to go out and get, clients. From there, everything else happens when if you're not doing any marketing, you're not getting any sales, you're definitely not getting any money, right?
Yeah.
So, and everything else is, affects from there. So again, you got to focus on the marketing, putting yourself out there, and then everything else will flow from there.
Nice one. Do you have any like success stories of students who started, let's say, maybe from scratch and got to a point that even you were like, wow, I didn't see this coming. I know you could do and be successful, but this is
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of success stories. A lot of them are on our website. We have a whole case studies page, and video testimonials of people who worked with us before. But I think the spark is when you understand that, A, you don't need to be doing everything, on your own. And B, understanding what exactly you should be doing as a business owner. I think that's like the turning point for a lot of people. But yeah, we have plenty of examples of people who weren't doing any marketing at all. Now they have a whole kind of like sales team that's like reaching out, doing LinkedIn DMs, creating content, bringing in, consistent work. So that's our metric for success. The money and all those things, of course, is a great KPI, to track. But it's also the systems that you have in place. So got to have systems before the money comes. So definitely, I've seen we work with people who have wanted to even break into not being a service provider, but breaking into more consultancy,
Right.
right? And where you can get more sizable, contract. A lot of times consultants don't even fly the drones, right? I mean, me as a consultant, I mean, there's months that go by without me even, touching a drone sometimes. Now,
Yeah.
does that, of course, I'm still a passionate, a drone pilot. In my early days, I kind of do miss, being able to just fly all the time. But again, you gotta find that balance.
Yeah.
And it's a difference again between being a freelancer and a business owner. The business owner is not gonna have the time to go out and fly always, right? You're gonna have to have people who can come in and help you with those things.
Yeah. So I want to move away a little bit from global AU and talk about some of the other things that you do. So you
Sure.
also do a lot of humanitarian drone related work as well. What is some of the like unique challenges that you find when it comes to humanitarian work as compared to what we call normal commercial drone work?
Yeah. Um, so I think a lot of times, again, you have to prepare yourself, and manage your expectations, right? Because naturally, humanitarian work, we're talking about NGOs, we're talking about humanitarian agencies. So you can't go into those situations expecting to make a lot of money, to yeah, be kind of this financial angle to it. I think it's naturally that it's humanitarian work. I mean, it's you're giving back, right? You're providing your services, a lot of times with no financial, incentive or gain at all. So, but I would say on a technical side, um, I would say it's taught me to be a better pilot because I mean I've worked in conditions where I mean there's no cell signal, and you have to map from a cloud based platform, and you're like, how do I even like go about this? And so you find your ways to be resourceful, and maybe you need to use a local hotspot to connect for those couple of minutes or something
Hmm.
like that. But yeah, it's like you're off the grid. You are running certain missions and things like that. Um, so if I were to give advice, is definitely take advantage of those opportunities. I mean, I can tell an example now. I mean, back in 2017, when I was in Baltimore, um, we of course had a lot of hurricanes that season. Two big ones, of course, hit the U.S. and then Hurricane Maria that came and really did a number on the region.
Right.
And you know at the time, but when the two big hurricanes hit, I think it was Harvey and Irma. I think that hit the U.S. and there were a lot of calls for drone pilots to come out, paid opportunities, right? They were insurance companies and people that were putting out things, but I
Right.
was all the way in Baltimore. I didn't really really kind of jump up and go on those opportunities, but um, a couple of weeks later is when Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, and honestly, I sat to myself and I said, wow, like, there's so much attention on the mainland US. Um, Puerto Rico was pretty much wiped, all entire electrical grid is down. Like it was really, really dire. And I said, there's probably, a need for some pilots down there. Like something was telling me like there's gonna be a need for some sort of like surveillance work or mapping or something that there's gonna be a lot of, work that needs to be done. So honestly, I at my partner at the time, I said, "Hey, man, like this could be an opportunity to go, collect some footage, do some mapping, and really kind of help out." And honestly, it was a little pushback, on his side because I mean he just couldn't understand like why you would put yourself in that type of situation. It didn't really seem like a good idea. There was no power. Like it was just so many, negatives
Yeah.
to that. But I knew that there was something, something to that. So um, I'm the type that like, when I get my mind on something, I'm gonna do my due diligence and I'm gonna go full steam. So I started looking up tickets, and I saw there was a cheap ticket, relatively cheap ticket, one way, going to Puerto Rico. I looked in saw some Airbnbs and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take this opportunity to go down there. I booked the Airbnb. The guy called me and said, "Hey, man, just so you know, there's no power here. Everything you're saying on the news is true. Like,
Yeah.
just want you to prepare." And I said, "Hey, I'm just coming in. I got a drone. I just want to do some, mapping and surveying work and just kind of help out where I can." So I flew down there. I didn't know a a single person. I just showed up literally, with my drone and got there and yeah, I spent probably 5 or 6 days, on ground. My Airbnb host was kind enough to like, yeah, he had a car, so we were driving around to different locations. I just started like mapping with drone deploy.
Mhm.
I started going to different locations, taking imagery, uploading the drone deploy, and eventually I did find like a local first responder type of aid group. And I just said, hey, like you know what, I have all these maps that I can just forward to you, send to you, footage, everything. Just here, just have it. I'll just transfer everything. And yeah, and so that was kind of the experience. But when I got back to the states, I reached out to some local news stations and I said, hey, like I just went down to Puerto Rico. I have all this like footage. Like, we were able to help,
Yeah.
some first responders and things like that. And just right there, they ran a story, on my experience. And, another news agency in Baltimore, picked it up. And then now I have two, pretty good pieces of press that are still online. If you just search Eno Umoh, Puerto Rico, they'll come up.
Yeah.
And a few weeks after that, I get a call from the Smithsonian, and the Smithsonian Institute is like, "Hey, like, we saw your story. We're having a program in DC in a couple of weeks. Would you like to come down and talk about your work, in STEM, your work, that you did in Puerto Rico, and things like that?"
Yeah.
And so now it's like, now I'm speaking at the Smithsonian. Like it's
Yeah.
like it's just crazy, like how all this comes together. So, yeah, so those are the opportunities that come from just taking the risk, recognizing that, like, hey, it may not make sense, to you, but if you have that kind of conviction, if what you're doing, like, things will work itself out. And true, to those experiences, I'm now still able to reference that type of work. Literally, there was a major agency that I'm kind of getting vetted for an opportunity for now, and I sent them that work from Puerto Rico. I sent them that article. Right.
Yeah.
There's another one that I went out to Bangladesh to map some refugee camps. That was actually the same year, and now they're vetting me for a pretty major opportunity based on those two,
Yeah.
events that I did 8 years ago. Right. So it's like what you do today absolutely will stick with, and it may not make sense today. It may not pay off. a 2 years, 3 years, 6 years down the line, but eventually you can, put that forward. So all that to say is, yes, there are challenges with when it comes to humanitarian work, but it's to build your skills, it's to gain that experience, get the exposure, and yeah, eventually something will work out from it for sure.
Okay. Any advice for people that may be interested in contributing or getting into humanitarian use cases for drones?
I would say look to partner with existing organizations. It very much seems like there are a lot of organizations that don't have kind of a drone response um, component or
Yeah.
an outfit. So offer to be their drone team or their drone response unit or something like that, where you can go with them when they're going out. Um, the other very important thing, and I don't want to under stress this, is you have to have coordinated effort. Back in 2017, that was kind of the wild days where there was less
Yeah.
law rules. Right now, I mean, there's so many stories that we're hearing about drones colliding with rescue helicopters
Yep.
and yes, everything from California to even here in Texas where they're having this big flood disaster that just happened. So coordinate with your local responders. Like, don't just show up. Like, I did that, but it wasn't the best thing. If I had to do it again, I would absolutely
Yeah.
that would be the first point. Coordinate with local first responders, understand what's going on, um, and just do everything the right way. Right? Don't just kind of be going rogue out there without a plan for sure. So yeah, coordinate with the existing companies, offer to be their drone, and then don't just come in as a drone pilot. Oh, I have my drone. I'm gonna just show up. Like, have a operations manual,
Yeah.
have SOPs. Like, show them that your stuff. You have a process for what happens when you get to the site. What are your pre-flight safety checks that you're going through? What happens when you get the footage? Who does that like? When you have a plan, when you have a structure, that is what gets you opportunities. It's not just showing up with the drone and just snapping photos and just, oh, what do I do now? Like, show that you have a process, a plan. And there are courses and things that literally there's whole conferences that talk about drones for disaster relief. Right. So learn from those things, read about what the best practices are when it comes to drones and disaster relief, and take the global standard to these opportunities. Don't just show up, with your drone for sure.
So, just as a matter of interest, things like developing SOPs and stuff like that, is that services that you offer as well?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, definitely. And yeah, we just look at again what are the global best practices. I would say we have a library of existing SOPs from other organizations that from other trainings and things like that. So yeah, we're able to go in and provide that type of structure.
Okay.
Yeah, to organizations, for sure.
So now I want to talk about one of the other hats that you wear, and that
Yeah,
is as the chairman of the African Drone Forum.
yeah,
So break it down for me what the African Drone Forum is and what you do in your role as the chairman.
sure. So Africa Drone Forum, ADF, again, we're largest organization of drone professionals on the continent. We really got our start in 2020 when there was a major event that we held in Rwanda that really just brought together the entire African drone industry. And I would say it was a historic event. At the time, I was just a participant in ADF. I wasn't the chairman, at that time. But historically, it has been just a series of events. So the very,
Right.
very first event was in 2018. It was in Tanzania. And then 2020 was like the big kind of, big historic event, thousands of people that came to Kigali, Rwanda. So over the years, um, with COVID and with all of the um, loss of funding and things like that, that work for, for what ADF was supposed to be, those things, unfortunately were lost, over time. My direct involvement came from ADF 2020 event where I actually won the business competition that they held at that event in Rwanda. So we won some seed funding by winning that competition, and that's actually what enabled me to open up a local office in Nigeria.
Okay.
And I actually moved full time to Nigeria in 2020 to open up this local office for drone training. So a few years went by, COVID had its effects, and I started to contact the people who organized the last ADF event, and it was funded by the World Bank. So it was very well, funded, and it had a lot of high profile. But I said, hey, well, like, when's the next ADF, going to happen? Like, I'm here in Nigeria. We've been able to open our office. We're training all these, youth and adults. Like, we want to be able to contribute to the next, major ADF event. And I didn't really get a whole lot of positive, news. Like, they were saying, oh, funding is lost. Like, we don't know when the next event's going to be. It was just kind of like this open ended, like, no one knows, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I knew that, I had benefited so much from this 2020 event. And I know others had as well. I mean, there were partnerships that I created, from there, people I went on to make, money with for different type of projects. Like, I mean, there's so many things that have happened. So I went to the, World Bank team and I said, hey, like, this is something that, not just myself, but, everyone who participated in ADF 2020, like, we really want to, like, take this thing forward. This is needed. Africa needs, like, something that we can, get behind. And they said, all right, well, if you can submit a proposal on what it is that you want to do, how you kind of see this going forward, we can go from there.
Right.
So I literally spent, over a year kind of, back and forth, proposal submissions and meetings. And eventually the World Bank team said, all right, well, since you want to commit to taking this forward, we're willing to basically hand over the marketing kind of collateral, the rights, the website, URL, everything,
Okay.
to you in good
Okay.
faith, and that you would be able to take
Right.
this on. So that was late 2023, and so yeah, we received all, like, the marketing, collateral, the assets, the website domain, everything, and then now it's like, all right, well, what do we do now, right? It's like, it was kind of like a fresh start. But again, I knew that ADF had such a big brand, such a big, impact on the industry, that I knew that that alone was enough for me to, kind of go forward with it. So yeah, so officially 2023, November is when I took everything over. And since then, we've been focused, again, on events. We had a big event last year in Kenya and Nairobi called the Elevate Africa Summit. And I would say this year we've shifted the focus from just planning events to now being a proper association.
Okay.
And this happened because as I was traveling to these other conferences, to, you know, Germany, South Korea, I see all these other, places. Like, everyone has these, you know, associations, right? And these are big association models. And I was like, why don't we have something like that in Africa? Like, we everyone's working in silos, and everyone has these, like, really cool projects, but we need something that, like, brings this together. And so we've now started an association model for organizational membership.
Okay.
Excuse me. And we have our first 10 founding members, on board now. And it's interesting because it's not just like an association where, oh, we just put your logo up and, it's a couple meetings out of the year and, go about your business. I'm actually bringing in some of the elements from Global Air U, as far as, like, business development, as far as, the templates and the SOPs, and helping companies get to that next level just by being a member. right?
Yeah.
And because of my own expertise as a drone business development person. So yeah, so it's an association. Our primary focus right now is organizational membership, but we're also, of course, planning trainings, working with government to kind of push policy forward, and yeah, just kind of working across the board. There's also a huge need for international partners that want to enter into Africa, but they don't have kind of a vetted network of companies and pilots to work with. So we're able to help them with, vetting different opportunities and connecting them with the right company for the right specific needs. So yeah, we just want to be the bridge from
Okay.
Africa to the international, world, and then also empower, our community as well. So.
What What are some of the challenges that operators in Africa face as compared to, let's say, the US? 'Cause that'd probably be where most people would be familiar with, or most familiar with.
Yeah. I would say first and foremost are the regulations. On average, to become a licensed drone pilot is, on the low end, we're probably talking 10 times the price of becoming a professional pilot in the US. You're talking about, less than 60% of countries that have full scale regulations in place.
Right.
So not only is it very difficult to become a drone pilot, it's very expensive. And that leads to a lot of quote unquote illegal activities where you have people that actually want to go through the process, but a lot of times they're so bureaucratic, they can't get their license or seen or their application seen, that it just leads to this really really devastating effect. So it's an uphill battle for sure, but it's work that needs to be done. It has to be done, and I know that there's a lot of talent out there that love drones, that want to be involved in drones, they're looking for opportunities. So in a way, we want to just help them to get past some of these regulatory hurdles in any way that we can, if it's just providing the resources that they need to present to their own CAA to convince them,
Right.
or just pairing them up with other people who are doing some great work. But I would say regulations are absolutely the number one challenge with the growth on the continent. Once we get past regulations, access to financing, right? It's investment. And there's a lot of talent there who, need investment in their companies, manufacturing. Think about the natural resources that are available all across, the continent. So, these can be used to produce lithium batteries, to produce, airframes, to produce, all types of materials that go
Yeah.
into, creating a drone. So those are the big challenges. But again, you know, that's what we're here for. And like they say, if your challenges don't scare you, then you need to pick a bigger challenge. So
in, in your experience in the industry, what is one of the biggest untapped potential for drone technologies that you've seen thus far, but specifically geared towards developing missions?
manufacturing for sure. I think there's definitely been an over reliance on Asia for parts and pieces, and we can call it like it is. A lot of times the attractiveness is the more affordable labor.
Right.
Um, but Africa has a very young population, has a very sharp, energized population that want to get into these things as well. So I think that we have to enable these these youth to take advantage of the opportunity to really um, have the resources to tinker, to build, to fail, right?
Okay.
You have to learn from your failures as well in order to get better. But if we don't have the training facilities, if we don't have the centers of excellence, if we don't have these things that are really, really crucial for growth. It's really going to hurt things in the long run. So manufacturing is definitely the missing link, and that's one of our top priorities is figuring out like how do we get more education and training opportunities in the hands of these youth for sure.
Yeah. So, and on that note, how could regions like the Caribbean learn from and contribute to, the broader drone ecosystem?
Yeah. Um, I think it starts with showing up. It starts with being present. It starts with engaging with other regions, like the approach that we're taking with the African Drone Forum is having an association, something that people can interact with. They can learn. They can, really like, you know, um, develop experiences, with each other. I think if we just kind of keep operating again in a silo, and this company got this big contract, this company is, doing this and that country, that's all great, but how does it benefit the greater good, for
Yeah.
everyone? So it starts with coming together, having an association, um, interacting with the larger international community as well. One of the things that we're going to be doing at us upcoming exponential shows, and I'm sure this will be at other shows as well, but we're going to have the Africa Pavilion. So it will be an opportunity where, we have dedicated space for African companies to go showcase their work, show people what they're doing, and really put them directly in front of investors, in front of, global partners in order to grow. Otherwise, again, when are we going to have opportunity to do this? And again, when I go to these shows internationally, they have Spain Pavilion, they have
Okay.
German Pavilion, they have France Pavilion. Why can't we? And I don't even want to say Africa Pavilion, like Africa is one thing, right? But
Yeah.
it's having an opportunity for everyone to congregate, and showcase their talent for sure.
Okay. Looking forward to that. Hopefully, I can get to one of those conferences and see the Africa Pavilion on display.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely, man, for sure.
I know I have to let you go in a little bit, but I have a couple more questions before you head out.
Sure.
Is there any drone tech right now that you're looking at and it's like, wow, that real cool?
Drone tech. I mean, obviously, we're in a very AI, you know, friendly climate right now. I would say I get excited just seeing like very niche use cases. So, things like the mineral exploration. Of course, you can't just use the off the shelf DJI for that. You have to have a special sensor. You have to have, things like that. There are things for, testing, water, air, samples. So those type of sensors definitely are attractive. I think the other thing that's going to unlock the industry is UTM, right? So it's the traffic management, for drones, being able to manage, traffic flow and guarantee that these drones aren't going to collide with
Yeah.
manned aircraft, with planes, which is a huge, issue. So it's really important that we continue to develop, this type of technology because otherwise it's going to be generally unsafe, especially when you have an environment that has a lot of air traffic, right? It's going to be very difficult to operate there. So, yeah, UTM, AI, um, those are all things that are attractive. We have advanced air mobility, air taxis as well. I'm excited to see that. I also want to see the use case for for Africa, for the Caribbean. I mean, it's not just delivering people from airports to downtown, but what are going to be the use cases for air taxis that are local and relevant. But yeah, a lot of the circles that I'm in, that's the things that they're talking about for
Cool.
sure.
Stuff, man. So, last question before I let you go, and this is one that I asked all of my guests recently, just to gain
Yeah.
a perspective and to share the different points of view people coming from in the industry. And that question is, what is one thing you wish you knew about the drone industry before you chose it as a career?
One thing I wish that I knew. I wish I understood the importance of, the things that we talked about towards the beginning of this convo, which is growing a drone business as opposed to like flying the drone. I think if I would have understood those concepts, before, um, would I have been further ahead? Probably. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm in a decent place, right now. But yeah, I think that figuring out the business side of it took years, and that's any business, right? I mean, I don't want to say this as though like, you're not eventually gonna to figure it out. But yeah, I wish I knew um, more. But the more I think about that, it's like there was no playbook back
Yeah.
then. Like everyone was new to the drone space. Everyone was like just kind of getting in on the ground floor. So I think, yeah, if I had to do it all over again, I would niche down much sooner for
Right.
sure. I wouldn't have spent so many years just kind of being the drone guy. I would have got really good in one vertical because shoot, if I had been in oil and gas for 10 years, oh man, or if I had just stuck to like, LiDAR or construction, like, I mean, yeah, it's crazy to think about, or even just, it could just be delivery, right? It's just something that like, but yeah, if I had to do it again, I would pick one vertical, one niche, get really, really good at that, develop my contacts at that, be known for that, and kind of go from there. But again, you live, you learn, and you kind of adjust along the way. I wouldn't want to go back, right? I think I've learned enough. My experience,
Right.
kind of speaks for itself. But if I had to go back, I would niche down early for sure.
Cool, man. Hey, let people know where they could find you, learn more about you, the work that you're doing, the Drone Alliance. There's gonna be a long list of
Yeah.
contacts.
Yeah, and I would say, man, the base is LinkedIn. I mean, definitely find me on LinkedIn. Eno Umoh, Eno Umoh is my last name. You can check out our website, globalairU, the letter U.com. You can check us out at africandroneforum.org. But yeah, a lot of my stuff is on LinkedIn. You can reach out, let me know any questions you have. If of course you're looking to participate or partner or even work with us in any form or capacity, yeah, happy to talk to you all there. I'm also on Instagram at where is No. That's a little bit more personal stuff, but it's still all business, at the end of the
Right.
day. But yeah, LinkedIn is like the main source for sure. So
Nice, man. Hey, thank you very much for joining me on this week of the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast. It was a pleasure.
thank you for having me, man. I really appreciated the convo and looking forward to more.
Me too, most definitely. Be in touch soon, man. Thanks again.
Yeah.